Hello, welcome back to another episode of 0 to 60. Now, this episode is going to be about testing N54 spark plugs. I guess you can use this for any spark plug if you know the resistance value, but I was talking to Ken, the gentleman that is tuning this Flowmax car, and he was explaining to me about resistance values of N54 spark plugs and how to check if you need to change them. A little bit of background, in the last month, 3 of our N54 cars have had misfire issues, all relating to ignition. This car has had 2 sets of plugs and 2 issues with misfires on those plugs, which we'll talk about in a few seconds. But yeah, long story short, you can actually test it. So if you're getting excessive amounts of timing corrections or misfires, pull your plugs out, grab a multimeter and do this test and know if you're in spec. Because if you're out of spec, you might not be getting official misfire codes, but you're holding your engine back because the spark plugs aren't right. And they do age. They age faster than I think a lot of people realize. So it's something to get on top of and make sure you're not slowing yourself down. Now, the other thing, just a quick update going on from the last video. I was super rushed on New Year's Eve when I was filming the oil cooler video, and I didn't get a chance to properly check everything. After I finished filming, I did degrease all of the oil, and obviously when I undid this oil connector and it was the original one, we dropped a load of oil everywhere, and then I thought that these connectors were weeping a little bit, and it's a good chance. I think I was just worried over nothing. I actually ran the car for 10 minutes yesterday and checked all of the fittings, all of the connectors. They don't leak, so I think we're good. And I left it running for about 10 minutes, then gave it a rev up to about 5,000 RPM and held it there, so oil pump would have been cranking, and yeah, I think we're actually good. I was worried over nothing. The Chinese fittings have actually held up. Fair play to them. What else? I've added a couple of cable ties just to secure this. Now, on the official Dyna one, they actually come with pads, and I had a feeling these China ones were supposed to come with pads to support the heater core, but they don't. Bit annoying, not the end of the world. It's all solid in there. It ain't going anywhere. Hopefully it's good. I've got the little seal on to go around the bumper. Now, we did encounter an issue when I went to refit the bumper today. You may notice the fog lights and all the grills are out. I'm actually painting the grills gloss black. Looking forward to that. But when I went to fit the bumper, the fog light on an E90 pre-LCI will hit the oil cooler core. It's no good. You cannot have a fog light and these big, thick oil coolers. Something to keep in mind. Bit annoying, and then I thought about it. We never use the fog lights. Let's get rid of the fog lights and have some extra cooling. What else have I done? I also added a vent into the wheel arch liner for the transcooler there. Basically, this radiator here, some people have asked about it. It is actually the coolant radiator from a PPK car or a 1M. They run these, and they run coolant through them normally. I've just had some AN lines welded on there, some dash 8 lines, and I've adapted it into the transcooler line, and it's now working as a transmission cooler. The actual core size isn't much different to the BMS ones, but it's not quite as thick. So the surface area is similar. It's a little bit smaller, but not much in it, and I was sort of hoping that with the ducting, it was going to pick up the efficiency for the size difference, but I'm having my doubts. I think the cooler on the 17T car does work better, but we'll see how it goes with the vent. We'll see. I'm not sure. Jury's still out. Okay, let's get to the spark plugs. So, Ken was explaining, I think I mentioned it earlier, but basically Ken was explaining that with N54 spark plugs, they need to have a reading of at least 4,500 ohms, or between 4,500 and 5,000 ohms is where they're is suitable, is okay. I think the new ones are a bit higher, but we'll measure them in a second. I've actually got a selection of spark plugs here, which, in fact, let's just get into testing them because this video is going to go on for too long. Oh, okay, so let me show you guys what I'm talking about. Now, basically, as I was saying in the intro, Ken explained that you want to have between 4,500 and 5,000 ohms, or 4.5 to 5 kilo ohms at least for an N54 plug to be good. So I have 2 new spark plugs here. This is actually a B58 plug. You can tell it's easy to identify because it's got the weird top on it. This one is a 1-step colder N54 plug, and from the left to the right we have the original 1-step colder plugs that were in my 17T car back in 2019. These are the 2-step colder plugs that replaced those 17T plugs, I think, unless they were in O'Reilly for a bit. Anyway, these are some second-hand 2-step colder plugs. This is the 1-step colder plug that was in O'Reilly when it blew up, and you can see where the piston hit it just there. Hopefully the camera's focusing on it. And then these ones here are the 5 other plugs that were in O'Reilly when it blew up. So we'll test them all. We'll test the new ones first to get you to give an idea on what they should be when they are brand new. Now, I haven't actually tested these yet, so let's have a quick squiz. Now all I'm going to do is one electrode on the top, yeah, you can call this electrode. And then the other one just on the tip of the plug. And you can see there, brand new plug is 5.57 kilo ohms, or 5,500 ohms. And we'll check the one-step colder plug. Also brand new. Oh, got to make sure you got a good connection. So you can see that one there is 5.1. Now we might have a bit of a connection issue here. Let's just try and be a bit more accurate. I'll say 5.1. That's on the two-step colder, on the one-step colder plug. Interesting. So slightly different variants, but both well over 5,000. Now, okay, now actually I should have just clarified. Although these were in the 17T car originally, these have also both been in the Flomax car. Now these were in the Flomax car since we bought it. I think back in February. The car actually came with the original Bosch 4-prong plugs, and on MHD off-the-shelf maps for both pump fuel and the flex map, no misfires at all. They did their job absolutely fine. Actually, no, I tell a lie. The reason there's one missing, one of them was misfiring when we put it onto flex fuel, and that's how we ended up using one of these plugs in with one of them. It's been a weird story. Anyway, long story short, these were not great, but they were okay at standard boost levels. However, once we put the Flomaxes on and we wound the boost up to 25 PSI, misfire city. But I guess something to keep in mind. Now let's see how they measure. Now, I believe we're going to have... So, we'll see. We'll just see how it connects. Obviously, there's going to be a bit of crap and stuff on the electrode on the plug. Oh. So that one there. Is it going to connect? Come on. Connect for me. There it is. So that's 4.3. So that is basically out of spec based on what Ken was saying. And he said you're going to get excessive timing corrections and maybe misfires, which is what those ones do at high boost. Let's check this one. 4.2, 4.1, again, out of spec. And it's going to work. With the carbon on the tips, it's a bit harder to get a decent connection. 4.0. So, yeah, again, definitely out of spec. And 3.8. Miles out. I wish I kept the other one that was misfiring on the OTS maps and the Vargas turbos. Come on, 4.1. Okay, so they're all out of spec, and I guess that's why they're problematic. Now these ones here, they were fine in the 17T car. Maybe they were no really. I can't remember exactly where they come from. We have way too many spark plugs. But long story short, they weren't actually misfiring in the Flomax car after a few pulls. Number 6 did misfire a couple of times, but it seemed to clear up and sort itself out. But with these plugs in, we were still getting heaps of timing corrections. They're not brand new. Let's see how they measure up. So two-step colder, a lot of timing corrections, but no official misfires. 4.5. That one. 4.9. Okay, so that one's sort of on the borderline. The second one is probably okay. Plug number 3. 4.3. So that is too low. Not ideal. Plug number 4. Gonna get a connection. 4.8 or 4.79. So within spec. Plug 5. It is hard to get a connection on some of these plugs with all the carbon build up on them, but 4.7, so also within spec. And then that's milliohms, so we're not getting a right connection. 4.8 there. Okay, so basically 5 of them are within spec. This is the other one that was out of spec, but not great. Definitely not like the new plugs that are like 5.5 and could be contributing to timing corrections. Let me know your thoughts below. It's definitely a bit of an unknown. I shouldn't say unknown. And I touched on it on the last spark plug video I did. People run different spark plugs. Two-step colder is generally what people think is the way to go. Ken from Wedge is saying not for daily. He reckons 1 step colder. And I got to be honest, even though these were throwing misfire codes, I think in the mid-range, they felt more powerful than these plugs in the Flomax car. Also, fun fact, O'Reilly wants 1 step colder plugs. So it's like cars that are running big fuel, like a lot of port injection, like the 1 step colder. Now let's see what O'Reilly's plugs measure at. These were 5.2. I think I did touch on it. They've done maybe 1 or 2 hours in O'Reilly. Maybe 2 to 3 actually, but they are pretty much, they've not done a lot of work. 5.7, so that interestingly, yeah, 5.7, that is higher than these new plugs. So maybe when the motor got really hot, it's affected the resistance. Come on, is it going to get a connection? Okay, 5.04. So still over 5. I think basically what I'm going to shoot for is anything over 5 I'm going to reuse. That's my theory. Because plugs are expensive. Come on. Finally got it. That's 6. Okay, so that's higher than these new ones. Not sure if that's an issue or not. That was 5.49 before it went a bit weird. 5.45. So yeah, pretty much like new. So interestingly, the ones that were in O'Reilly, and that motor obviously got quite hot, some of them have higher resistance numbers or values than new plugs, and others are still pretty high. I think I'm going to run these just to try them. I'm going to add one brand new one, so I'll add this to the set, and we'll see how the Flomax car runs with those plugs in there. And actually, just for shits and giggles while we're here, this is the plug that got smashed with a piston. What's that resistance? Is it going to work? Can't get a good connection on the electrode. Everything's mangled and covered in oil. 4.7. Okay, so the plug that got a hit is the lowest resistance. I wonder if that was pulling timing or detonating or something inside that cylinder, which is why it got hot and broke everything. Who knows? Well, guys, bit of an interesting update, and if you've got a multimeter and you've been running your plugs for 20, 30,000 Ks, maybe 20,000 miles, it might be worth just checking them. Even though your car's not misfiring, you might be keeping yourself away for some extra power. Spark plugs, even these iridiums, which in a factory car are rated like 100,000 kilometers, they're not going to last 100,000 Ks in a car where you're running twice as much power as they were when they're from the factory, if that makes sense. Right. I might go in and get this video edited and get it out. I'm planning to get out on the road. Hopefully it's dry tomorrow. I can even see some blue in the sky. That was grey an hour ago. Hopefully we've got some dry roads in the morning. I'm going to get the plugs back in, get the bumper back on, and we'll try and do some power runs and get these logs off to Ken, because I want a revision of this map. I think I touched on it in the last driving video, but I haven't bothered to get any revisions yet because I want to make sure that the ignition is as good as it's going to be before Ken starts trying to dial the map in. There's no point sending him revisions when the car's not right. I want the car to be as right as it can be in the short term before he starts trying to tweak it and making it better. But it's still bloody quick as it is. I'm hoping to do a 5-second 1 to 2 tomorrow. We'll see how we go. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. Hopefully this helps somebody that might be battling with misfires or even timing corrections. Check spark plugs. It's like one of the most important things in the engine. Right. I'm out. Thank you. Peace.